Welcome back. The NWSL on Twitch. Players out on the field and about ready for kickoff in a couple moments' time. This game airing domestically on CBS, where again, well over 300,000 people watched the opener of this fall series on national broadcast television in the United States. Here's a look at the starting lineup for North Carolina. Evans makes her debut. Lynn Williams back in the lineup. This is not a box. Recaro is going to be a holding mid and a 6 in a 3-1-4-2.
Whole new formation for Paul Riley, and it's a great time to roll it out in this 4-game series for the Courage, and some younger players getting a chance to step up. Meanwhile, for the Dash, straightforward 4-3-3. Most of these players started in the Challenge Cup final, except look at that front left player, Bridget Andrzejewski, getting her Dash and NWSL debut.
The former North Carolina Tar Heel will match with Latsko and Nichelle Prince, who, if you talk with James Clarkson, may have been the best player on the field in the knockout stage games for Houston.
She was on fire in those knockout games. She joined the team late, coming back, dealing with some family business, so had to go through quarantine to come back in with the club, but looked so great in those knockout games. Just kind of kept hitting the target, but not quite getting it in. Shea Groom, of course, up top. She was the MVP of that championship game. She had 3 goals Challenge Cup. Lynn Williams had 3 goals in the Challenge Cup. They both finished second to Rachel Daly in the Golden Boot standings because of assists.
Now, folks, let's describe this for just a moment because fans may be unaware. This is a 3-1-4-2. International fans may have seen it with Sheffield United. That's where Paul Riley watched it for over a year's time. 2 outside backs getting high, overlapping center backs, the ability to move left or right. This is going to be fascinating in the sense that he said it could be 9-8, it could be 0-0. They have, quote, not the foggiest idea how this is going to turn out for North Carolina, with 12 players missing from their roster from what they had coming into the 2020 season. Houston in white, North Carolina in blue, and we are underway. First game for both these sides since the Challenge Cup. For North Carolina, it was a staggering defeat at the hands of another superpower in this league, the Portland Thorns. Morgan Weaver's game winner in the 8-1 matchup of the quarterfinal. For Houston, a magical run to their first ever NWSL championship by winning the Challenge Cup in Utah. Comes out to Nichelle Prince. What are the expectations for Houston Dash in this game?
Keep building on what they accomplished in the Challenge Cup, but give a few players some more minutes with the absence of Daly.
Oh, brutal giveaway, and it is steered aside. LeBay went after that, and Latsko helping to force the turnover in the back. Maybe it will finish 9-8.
Latsko getting an assist in the Challenge Cup. She was out for most of 2019 with injury, but she's back to her 2018 form. Oh, so close. LeBay looks like just got that wide of the goal. And I know James Clarkson is looking for this fall series to give players like Latsko, who were mostly subs in the Challenge Cup, more minutes.
Corner, there's a push on LeBay, who went flying toward the net mouth. LeBay, an interesting story, will voluntarily opt out following September 19th. So she will play, theoretically, both home games for North Carolina and then head back to Canada, knowing that there are going to be some women's national team camps for her. Opens up the door for Roland, maybe Sam Murphy to play. Groom trying to continue the attack for Houston. It is a 3-back here for North Carolina. The box it's mythical when you talk with coaches around this league. But when you're missing 3/4 of the 4 players you play as your 2-8s and your 2-10s.
You've got Denise O'Sullivan on loan in England. You've got Dunn opting out, and Mewis now transferred to Manchester City. Yeah, but a series like this, it's such a great opportunity to try out something new. And Paul Riley made it clear to us he's committed to it for the entirety of this series. It's not a, oh, it didn't work in this half, we're going back to what we were doing.
Speck here to throw.
It's also a great opportunity for players like Abby Dahlkemper, serving as captain for this squad for the first time in her professional career.
O'Reilly told us 5 years ago in Western New York she couldn't lead a camel through a desert. And here she is now captaining the side. Back to Kurtz, the former South Carolina player. It's all about those overloads on one side or the other and the ability to pivot side to side with that midfield three, creating these triangles to pass in. James Clarkson on the near side, Paul Riley on the far side. Riley just signed a 2-year extension that perhaps was in question in the last few months. Decided to continue on. Ball floated forward and away from Malay.
And you know North Carolina is going to want to try to take advantage of the fact that there's no Rachel Daly, and Megan Oyster is sitting out, still letting those ribs recover from this summer. James Clarkson saying, sure, adrenaline was a great, painkiller to play the final, but he figured it was safer for her to rest this game. They don't play again for 2 weeks so that she doesn't have a nagging injury that just never gets solved.
Another corner to come here for Houston.
Historically, Houston not known for its goals off set pieces until the last year.
Until the Challenge Cup.
Yeah.
Rachel Daly saying, I'm not sure we've scored off a set piece in 5 years. There's the service, and it's knocked aside by LeBay. Big collision and an obvious foul. That's a shoulder straight to the chest. And they're calling for some help here. That's Addison Merrick, who impressed so much as a 4th-round pick.
There's the corner from Mewis. LeBay getting both hands on it to send it out. Looks like Latsko and Merrick colliding. And they're taking a look at Merrick now. If she's bleeding, she's going to have to leave the field. It's good that the dash trainer is checking out Latsko as well. Often the head injuries without blood are the potentially more serious ones.
Yeah, don't want to start to assume what may have happened there, but that collision looked right in the chest, and in reality, kind of going downward. Latsko has a laceration as well beneath her hairline.
Like the trainer there sporting her H-Town mask.
As they've been prone to do now, gone dash on in a variety of new.
And NWSLshop.com now has masks for every single club. And since this is the international feed, we can say they ship internationally.
They do. For what it's worth, a lot of talk about the plan for Houston, their branding going forward that came out in The Athletic, and a potential change in ownership. So H-Town it is. And they continue to attend here to Addison Merrick. Merrick came in really with the expectations of all the players that were unavailable. Jaylene Daniels, Merritt Mathias, both out of the Challenge Cup. So who steps into those roles? And Addison Merrick was happy to get the opportunity. It was surprising to see someone who was picked 28th overall step in and perform so admirably from the jump. But I don't know that Paul Riley was really surprised.
He scouts so well, and of course he has Charlie Nemo helping him. So in a way, when Merrick started the first game of the Challenge Cup against Portland, I wasn't totally surprised, because he doesn't put a newbie out there to start an opener for no reason.
Let's get another look at the injury here a moment ago. That's Latsko going into Merrick. And just something you never want to see. North Carolina, they've waited about 7.5 weeks to get back onto the field. And for Merrick, one of the players that coming into this, Paul Riley told us this week, her development is massive for the future of this franchise.
And especially testing out this new lineup with a three-back.
Because it's not a full deck of cards here. Peyton Perea
making her NWSL debut coming on for Addison Merrick. Though Perea has been part of North Carolina's training for the last 2 years. Training player, and then she did get an NTR contract, National Team Replacement Player contract last summer during the World Cup break. Also was on the bench for both of the Women's International Champion Cup game, but this is the first time that she will actually take the field for the Courage.
Knows the area well, played at Wake Forest, a California native who spent some time over in Spain. And we'll step right in here for Merrick on the right-hand side. And you hope Addison Merrick's okay. If we get an update on her condition, be sure to pass it on. At minimum, it's a laceration above her right eye. Jane Campbell knocks it away.
Each team allowed 5 subs in all the fall series games, though they can only be made in 3 windows other than halftime.
So that is the first window for North Carolina. To be fair, there is a chance Sam Murphy could play in the field today due to a lack of available subs.
And I would never put that past Paul Riley. Again, making NWSL history.
He seemed quite coy about it. This is a nice run forward here by Prince, who lashes that across, falls, and gets blasted over by Shea Groom. What a story Shea Groom is. You and I have been around the NWSL long enough. We know what she brings to the table. For a lot of fans, the Challenge Cup was eye-opening.
She didn't see a lot of time with the Reign last year, mostly because of injury. Whole new, healthy Shea Groom playing in more of a natural position, and she was explosive. Air Groom is ready for departure.
Sophie Schmidt. Floats that too far the other side. North Carolina was clear to us in the lead up to this game. We will continue to press as we see fit.
And I know a lot of people were shocked to see North Carolina go out in the quarterfinal of the Challenge Cup, but Paul Riley made a really good point, that we were still the only team to win 4 games. And he made a point of saying that a championship is won over 26 games. Though I'd like to see him say that to James Clarkson's face.
We'll see what the conversation is like when this one is over. North Carolina perhaps a bit tentative in the early going, getting forward in this new form. And Williams watches this skid away. This is probably where we'd see Kristen Hamilton, who of course has lit up Houston over the years, as we documented pregame, the right wing back position. Mewis. Schmidt. Ball toward Prince, brought down by Kurtz. They would have loved to have seen what Abby Ersick could do in this situation. Kurtz is going to be asked a lot in distribution. Groom. Mewis, this will bounce up for her. Can she keep that in? This will be a goal kick.
Mewis, another player who had an excellent Challenge Cup. 1 goal, 1 assist. Playing excellently in front of Latko Nanoski, who was there in Utah for all but the final game of the Challenge Cup, writing all kinds of things in his notebook that we'd love to be able to read.
Mewis nearly slipped that into the wing. reach that channel.
Worth noting that Vlatko Nanowski drafted both Mewis and Shea Groom when he was head coach of FC Kansas City.
Part of that first true NWSL run of not quite dynastic proportion. But had they stuck around, perhaps could have gotten there.
First team to get back-to-back titles. And they swept the awards in the inaugural season. Keeper of the Year, Rookie of the Year, Golden Boot, Coach of the Year.
Vlatko, Becky Sauerbrunn, Amy Rodriguez, Sydney Leroux.
Cheney.
Oh.
A-Rod was sitting out for child number 1, still with Seattle at the time.
Look at this from Mewis.
And Erica Timrak as Rookie of the Year.
Well, they feel like Mewis can still provide a little bit more. It does so much in midfield, but they just want to see her score a goal or two, a few more assists. Some of those counting stats can be a real game changer. Clever from Dabinia, but doesn't have a lot of help around her. Caro trying to close down that space, and there's the whistle.
It was Mewis who earned the penalty kick in the Challenge Cup final, working down the flank, getting fouled by Chicago, and she ended up having to leave the game early with a quad strain.
Caro's forearm getting in toward the ribs of Mewis.
Schmidt on the ball. She was the one that converted the PK in the final, the game-winning goal. The only penalty kick goal, the only true penalty kick goal of the entire Challenge Cup.
Put in play, Hansen, bodied up by Speck. Dabinia. There's more room out on the wing. Instead, tried to carry forward. And we'll play on Danica Evans, who makes her North Carolina debut. Quarter of an hour gone. Scoreless between North Carolina and Houston. Plenty of fireworks in the early game today. Washington 2, Chicago 1. Feist and Scarpa, 2 late second half goals, 71st and 90-plus third. Sarah Lubert scored for Chicago in the first half before Savannah McCaskill was sent off for a second yellow. With that, Washington and Sky Blue are sitting on 3 points atop the Verizon Community Shield standings race. Rolled ahead here for North Carolina Courage. Speck. Eating for Dabinia.
Ali Prysock letting that ball roll out. She's stepping in for Megan Oyster, who we mentioned. Out for this game to rest those ribs that she injured in the Challenge Cup quarterfinal. She did play in the Challenge Cup final wearing a protective vest.
For what it's worth, James Clarkson said Prysock outstanding in the semifinal coming in against Portland.
And I feel like Prysock is probably that player who's going to fall just outside the edge of how many players you can protect going into the expansion draft this fall. And I would think she would be, you know, on the top of the list for Louisville if she were available, of that young up-and-comer player that already has a fair number of games under her belt. But you can see Houston wouldn't want to lose her. There's a look at Bridget Andrzejewski making her professional debut on the field where her alma mater played, played in well, actually not last played, but they played the 2018 NCAA final here.
Here comes Dabinia. Dabinia goes down, that's a penalty. Dabinia goes airborne, undercut, yellow card shown to Chapman. They really wanted to get after her in this game, and now they have in the 18th.
And just like last time these teams met, It's a PK for Jane Campbell to face. Debinha making the run through two defenders. Chappie coming in with the slide, taking her down, and the ref blows his whistle. Jane Campbell, of course, has made more penalty kick saves in regulation than any other NWSL keeper.
It's Dahlkemper. Dahlkemper delivers.
No save for Campbell today, but Dahlkemper, that's her third goal across all competitions for NWSL, all coming from the penalty spot.
And of course, wearing the captain's armband for the very first time. And Campbell, who is a spectacular penalty goalkeeper, as shown in the Challenge Cup, can't keep Dahlkemper off the board.
And Houston's club record shutout streak ends at 362 minutes. They set a new record in the middle of the Challenge knockout rounds, passing a record that had stood since 2015. 362 is not a bad number.
But perhaps it's more the same between North Carolina and Houston. Their 9th all-time meeting and 7 wins to North Carolina, and a depleted Courage drew the dash a few years ago during an international break. Not sure that North Carolina exactly deserving to be ahead in this new formation. Hasn't been pretty necessarily.
And we saw some of that in the Challenge Cup, even when they weren't necessarily dominating a game. I mean, that whole first round, they came back, they got the points. Only team to get max points from first round play.
Jack Williams pressuring Jane Campbell. Sophie Schmidt able to bypass that line. One back by North Carolina. Schmidt there again. Head to Debinha, rather. Dancing forward, Danica Evans. Offside flag is raised here.
Lauren Malaya, 2019 draft pick out of Colorado College. Paul Riley speaks so highly of her and just how far she's come in 1 year. Didn't see a lot of minutes in 2019, but she will definitely get a lot of time in this fall series.
All pinged forward, scooped up by LeBay. Dahlkemper, 18th minute, the go-ahead goal. The 2017 NWSL Defender of the Year.
And the first one in league history not named Becky Sauerbrunn.
Right.
Cover up, cover! Cover up, cover! Cover!
Picked up by Nichelle Prince. Prince on Kurtz, drives it in front and lifted over. Groom's gotten a couple good looks in the early going.
Groom, one of the few players in NWSL who has scored against every current team. Oh, one touch there from the feed from Prince, but too high. You can see her frustration. Would have been a tough one for LeBay to save if it had been just a little bit lower. Plenty of time still for Groom to work on that finishing. You know, Mike, I think the biggest challenge for the Dash really is missing Rachel Daly's kind of vocal support, team energy. She's the one that came up with the phrase, "This circle will not break," which became their mantra for the tournament, and now the team has even made shirts for it. She and Jane Campbell captained together, but kind of like the quiet leader and the loud leader, and so I'm wondering who's going to step up and be the loud leader.
It's interesting because the player that came up with the mantra for both sides, remember Mewis came up with burn the boats along with Paul Riley, also gone, signing a deal with Manchester City, although the rights to Samantha Mewis in the NWSL remain with North Carolina. 12 unavailable players all included. Mackenzie Meehan could return. Ali Watt out with a knee. Mewis signing with Man City. Opt-outs from Jaylene Daniels, Crystal Dunn, Abby Urseg, Kristen Hamilton, eventually LeBay, McDonald as well. Ball across, and Campbell is on it. And then loans for O'Sullivan, Mason, Agnew.
And of course, LeBay would not opt out after the first 2 games if she didn't have such great backups. You know, Paul Riley mentioned it'll be great that, you know, Leshnak and Roland will get additional minutes. That's your biggest challenge as a backup keeper in NWSL. Where are you going to get those minutes?
Mewis carries forward.
And of course, all of the loans that we've mentioned, they all end at the end of the year. So any of your favorite players who may be on loan, don't worry. They come back at the end of the year.
Bina pushing that too far forward and unleash Malay. And that's the interesting thing. To go play in the English League, to go play in some of the CC Kaiser going to Norway, players going to
Sweden,
Germany, Spain, etc.
Or Yuki Nagasato going to a men's team in Japan.
Which is terrific. In her hometown.
I love it.
Live out that dream. Look at this sprint by Mewis. Long diagonal, way too far here. But ultimately, players got what they needed out of this. Some need 15 games. Others can accept 4 games and move toward the offseason. Others still choosing to voluntarily opt out just in the world that we live in.
And it really, it's all a player-to-player kind of situation. And I think it's easy to look at that list and go, wow, why are all the players leaving? Well, one, they're not leaving. 2, some of them, the younger ones, if they haven't been getting minutes, if they can't break into that starting lineup, they might need that loan. For the national teamers, this is really a rare opportunity to have an extended period in a different league against different players, a different style of play, when they know they won't be missing any national team time.
Turned over by Dahlkemper. It's Groom laying this across. There's the equalizing goal. Veronica Latsko scores for the Dash. We're level at 1.
That is Latsko's first goal since August 2018. She was injured for most of 2019. Shea Groom winning the ball off of Dahlkemper, sending it simply over to Latsko, who finishes. No drama, right? Just don't send that high, just get it in the net. North Carolina equalizing. Something they have never done against North Carolina. They scored once to take the lead, and they've scored late against Carolina. They have never equalized against Carolina.
So mission accomplished here for Latsko, who did score 3 goals with Sydney FC in Australia over the offseason, trying to come back from a knee injury. Talked about how much support she got from the staff in Houston while she tried to rehab back from that injury, because it can be really devastating. Groom, of course, the assist, unselfish as ever.
She had the assist, I believe, on Christy Mewis's goal, the Challenge Cup. Yeah, those Golden Boot standings were really tight at the end. Like 3 players with 3 goals and 1 assist, and then boom, Rachel gets the final assist.
Rachel Daly sets up Groom and wins the Golden Boot on the tiebreaker. Ball floated over the back line. That header leaves a bit to be desired. It was tough to deal with. Dabinia. Speck. Williams pressuring Jane Campbell's 6.
And I got to drop a good Jane Campbell stat, Mike. Only goalkeeper in league history to earn an assist, and it was against North Carolina. So now she just needs a goal against North Carolina. You know, if we're going to have Sam Murphy come on as a goalkeeper play on the field, then maybe Jane Campbell can just score from all the way 100 yards away, right?
Sure.
Or does the rule still stand that the ball has to touch someone else other than the keeper before it can go in the net?
I do know this. I'd love to see the situation we saw in Portland a couple of years ago. Yeah. Only goalkeeper goal ever scored, right?
Michelle Betos with her head off a corner.
A goal kick's not an answer, but you could still knock it down when the ball's already in play, sure. Taylor Hansen here. A little bit versatile, can play in that holding midfield role when Schmidt's not available, can play it right back.
She was a surprise to a lot of people when Dash chose her in the first round 2018 draft, but she'd just come out of a U23 camp where the U23 coach, BJ Snow, just couldn't stop raving about her. James Clarkson had to put her back in defense last season due to some injuries. So that experience ended up paying off in the Challenge Cup, where she played several games on defense.
Bina battling here with Sophie Schmidt. Commits the foul. Davinia, what a run through the playoffs last year. Free kick in the semifinal in the 98th. A great curling effort against OL Reign. Scored to get things going in the final against Chicago. Dash stall out as they enter the final third. Nearing the half-hour mark. A goal apiece. Toward Prince, that's dealt with. Long way from home for Lynn Williams.
Williams, the all-time leading American scorer in NWSL. 50 regular season goals, 3 in the Challenge Cup, 3 in the playoffs. Only people with more in NWSL history really are Sam Kerr, Christine Sinclair.
We've reached the half-hour mark. Groom has had good number of chances thus far. Dahlkemper scored on a penalty in the 18th. Groom set up Latsko in the 25th. We're all level at 1. You're watching the NWSL Fall Series on Twitch. A long-standing commitment between CBS and the NWSL. Multi-year deal, which includes the Challenge Cup and 7 games, the NWSL Fall Series. Greater distribution than ever before for the women's game in the United States and beyond.
And being able to rewatch the games on CBS All Access.
Major plus. Glad you're with us. North Carolina and Houston on level terms here. Dahlkemper giveth and taketh away. Scored a penalty, but also a turnover in the back that allowed Houston to break through. It's Prince. Prince racing by Kurtz, laying this all the way across, gets tapped away from the goal line. The pressure continues from the Dash.
So hard to tell who got the final foot on that to keep it clear. It looked like it was past Stephanie LeBay's arm. But great pressure by the Dash. Prince coming down the right side, beating her mark, sending the ball over past LeBay's hand. Looks like it may have bounced off the Dash player. Does that bounce off Andrew Jeske?
Well, good look for Houston nonetheless. A lot of bodies involved in that. There were 5 approaching the goal line.
Sometimes you just barrel it in, right? Like, as long as it goes in, it's still a goal.
It's an interesting situation here for North Carolina because they've come out and admitted if we lose 7-0. We're going to come back next week and try this again. Bad giveaway in the back here by the dash, but they've quickly recovered as it squirts out to Speck.
And these games are such an interesting hybrid. Like, this is not an exhibition. These games actually count. It's just not regular season and not Challenge Cup. They count. They matter. These go down in the record books. But it's such an odd year, such an interesting time, but an incredible opportunity for Paul Riley to roll out something different and not just one game, but 4.
Latsko commits a foul. Free kick here for North Carolina. Carrie Riccaro getting a real chance to make her mark here, according to Paul Riley. Journeywoman around the NWSL, and now it's her job to set the tempo and the tone. One would think off first glance this is Debinha's to take. It is a long way out.
She's had some wicked free kicks.
They put it in play. Debinha trying to lead Lynn Williams, and that broke down from the very beginning.
It was a Debinha free kick against Portland that gave Britt Eckerstrom the opportunity to win Save of the Tournament for Challenge Cup. A top shelf free kick.
No fans here in North Carolina, which is a far cry from what's normal in Cary. Home to so many college cups, ACC championships.
World Cup qualifying, WSA.
Head for Debinha, who bounces off the contact. This sets down. Speck! Swings that wide of Campbell and the post.
Nice look from Meredith Speck, one of those players who's been part of this franchise since it was in Rochester, New York. Back in the day, don't see her name a lot in the lineup, but you know if she's still around that she is a big part of their training environment.
Only 33 career NWSL appearances. But notably, perhaps, in how you keep a locker room together, she's the primary DJ for the team.
That's really the most important role, right?
Well, it's little things like that that give you longevity. Going from 2016 in Western New York down to North Carolina and through a handful of championship teams. Here comes Houston barreling down a hill with Groom. Mewis outside. Groom able to get it there, gets the return. Under pressure from behind by Malay. Groom goes down, referee's looking, but look at this finish! Christy Mewis, and Houston regains the lead. North Carolina grab a penalty early. Houston equalizes. Now they are ahead in the 37th.
Groom getting knocked down, thinking she might get the call. She doesn't need it as Mewis finishes. Nice little give and go between those two. Christy Mewis coming in, sending the shot across the goal mouth past LeBay. Dash up 2-1 coming from behind against North Carolina, something they've never done before. But of course, Mike, we've got a lot of games still to play.
Mewis, 37th minute, had a magnificent goal in the Challenge Cup.
She's played every season of this league, started off with Kansas City, then to Boston, then briefly Spirit and Chicago before landing in Houston end of 2017 season.
Has technically played for 6 different teams, but hasn't necessarily suited up for them all. Some quick succession trades. She's been a bargaining chip for a while. Player that everyone agrees has potential and has shown it on the international stage. But after 5 years being left out of the U.S. national team, finally got her first call-up in all that time back in December.
Well, and it's no fault to the player when you know the pool is kind of kept to a certain number. The CBA is different now, so moving forward, there's more freedom. We've seen more freedom from Jill Ellis before she stepped down, that she's able to call in more players. So that talent ID camp that Vlatko Nanoski had in December just that list of names was eye-opening of who he was looking at. It was obviously very heavy NWSL, but also very heavy juniors and seniors out of college. But Christy Mewis, though, I think she was the oldest one in that camp.
I'd believe it. 29. There's an irony to being ID'd by Vlatko Ananovsky when you were drafted 3rd overall in 2013 out of Boston College.
Yeah, by
Vlatko
Ananovsky.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I want to make sure it's not like she suddenly got worse, but the pool kind of shrunk. She did get 15 caps in 2013.
Swung out to the far side. Williams.
Yeah, Christy Mewis and her sister Sam, the only pairing of sisters we had in NWSL. Sam, for now, from Manchester City.
Look at this run by Mewis. Finishing it off at the end.
One touch, left foot, love it.
I feel she can identify pockets of space that you can be really effective in. Just rolling down the line. Chapman under pressure, needs to be careful. Chapman's on a yellow card, so
We've
those
already
two are
had
going
one
at
red
it.
card today.
Indeed. And it was in the 42nd minute of our first game. We're only in the 41st.
Chapman won't give an inch. James Clarkson believes she's the best 1v1 defender in the league. I spoke to her this week for the Dash podcast. We talked about how she's started doing volunteer coaching, volunteer assistant coach at Rice University, working with her former college coach, Brian Lee, who used to be at LSU.
Bina, that was taken away by Schmidt. How would you describe Chapman?
My first description of her that I heard that I loved was plays like a bull in a china shop. And that was said by Tom Sermani with the highest of compliments, like the biggest smile on his face, like I wish every player was like that. I think she's also such a crucial piece to the dynamic of the team on and off the field. She's dry but very funny and quirky in her own person. And she's one of the 2 players on this roster who played with the Dash all the way back to 2015. She hasn't been on the roster consistently that whole time. She did have a brief time with North Carolina and a year with Boston, but she can remember some older Dash era like Cammie Privet. So she and Cammie, I've heard, have been like that when there's a new player to Houston, they say, okay, if you want this, go here. If you want this Tex-Mex, here's your flavor. Or you need to do this. This is how Houston works.
They're the welcome wagon.
Yes, exactly.
Hansen. Well out of the reach.
And I think it's been great to see kind of the connection between Nichelle Prince, Sophie Schmidt, Alicia Chapman, all playing together in the Canadian national team. They've all talked about how it kind of makes the transition easier coming in and out between club and country.
There's an element of proof that you don't need to have a bunch of U.S. women's national team stars to win a cup now. Another giveaway here by North Carolina defensively, and they'll have to shape up a little bit as they go forward. Turn back here to Schmidt. Latsko. But you're talking one of England's rising stars. Rachel Daly, you're talking a player who hadn't been to a national team camp in 5 years in Mewis, and a lot of Canadians that are well into their careers.
Jane Campbell and Haley Hansen knocking on that door.
Floated ball forward, and Latsko goes sliding in.
Latsko, a 4th round draft pick from 2018. And looking at all the rosters for the fall series, it's interesting to see the 4th round draft picks from not just like this year, but like a couple years back and further back that are still with their clubs. And not just warming the bench.
You spend time with Steve Swanson, says she is the engine of our team at Virginia. That's a big amount of praise. Ball crossed here. Deflects out from Speck, who's had a very busy first half.
One of the few players out of Yale to play in NWSL. We saw another one get her debut in the earlier game today, Ariel Chavrin.
But also a Long Island Fury player.
So a natural connection to Paul Riley.
Indeed. Throw in here for North Carolina as they try and equalize late in this first half. Circles back out to Kurtz. Using the body there to allow Kurtz a little bit further. Hansen continues to grab.
Kurtz was such a huge supporting player for North Carolina last year, basically stepping in when the national teamers were gone. Every time she stepped in, she was playing the full 90. She wasn't the sub. She was, hey, Dahlkemper's not here. You're it.
9 starts, 810 minutes. Played all 90, all 9 times. Played ahead here. 5 additional minutes at the end of the first half. Groom. Nice ball lays through. The recovery here by North Carolina. Paul Riley said, a starter potentially anywhere else in the league, Kaylee Kurtz, but you're behind Abby Squared, Dahlkemper and Ursig. Debinha lacing this through. We have barely seen Lynn Williams really make a concerted effort on the ball. It's just been on an island in this first half. Team that is known for getting just peppering the not only the goal mouth, but also the box with crosses. Hasn't really been the case as they feel this out a little bit. And without so many major pieces that can really make them tick.
They led all teams in shots and also corners by far at the Challenge Cup.
Mentioned at the outset, but the 4-4-2 box that North Carolina has tinkered with for years to terrific effect. Scrap today for 3-1-4-2 made famous by Sheffield United. Paul Riley's been studying. It was a collaborative effort. Team and coaching staff in agreement. They're going to give this a shot during the fall series and potentially be able to operate out of both going into next year, which, depending on how this one works out, could send a quiver of fear in every coach in the league.
All because of Sheffield United.
Groom. Oh, here comes Latsko. Latsko driving along, plays this in front, and there's nothing there for Andrzejewski, who's offside. Went right through her legs. And the North Carolina alum, the former freshman of the year in the ACC, unable to get the finishing touch, despite the fact this was already off.
Again, Groom sending the ball through, catching North Carolina slightly out of position. Latsko gets the ball over to Andrzejewski, but timing just a little bit off. Can't finish it. How satisfying would that have been to go into halftime with the lead? I mean, a bigger lead, sorry. Just once has Houston scored 2 against North Carolina, never 2 in 1 half. But again, we should probably put an asterisk by a lot of these things before Mike Watts starts rolling his eyes at my stats.
Sometimes in sport, you're rooting for the laundry. It's all about the jersey. This is part of history now.
Well said.
This one back by Houston. 2 more minutes of first half stoppage time.
Well, and I don't see any player ever wearing a North Carolina jersey that would have the idea of, oh, these games don't count. No, I'm sure every single game counts.
Great first ball to Debinha, and then couldn't combine with Lynn Williams, who was a step shy.
Yeah, Katie Naughton and Allie Pricelock, not as much to do in the back as I thought they might have had to do. Katie Naughton played every minute of the Challenge Cup, all 7 games. She and Jane Campbell only players to say every minute of 7 games in that tournament.
Kurtz comes up and wins the ball. Speck. Williams operates with Millay charging on the other side of her. How clever was that? Laid forward by Groom, Nichelle Prince. Prince probing, and again, just out of the reach of a third goal for the Dash.
Same play, different players. Same result, not quite a goal. But I love that ball sent down the flank and Prince making the run. She's got plenty of space. She cuts in, gets it past Dahlkemper, but Latsko can't finish, and her mark is right on her.
Well, the Dash right now are showing their Challenge Cup form. They never faced North Carolina in the Challenge Cup. In this Southern pod, obviously no one faced Orlando. Ball over the top, steered down by Williams.
Yeah, by contrast, you look at Houston's starting lineup, 8 of these 11 were starters in the Challenge Cup final. For North Carolina, you know, their last game was the quarterfinal. Only 4 of these players started in the final, and now one of us is off the field with Addison Merrick. So just Dabinia, Lynn Williams, and Dahlkemper.
We have reached halftime here. Dahlkemper scores first, a penalty in the 18th minute, and Latsko and Mewis respond in the 25th and the 37th to take a 2-1 lead.
Not the scoreline we thought we would see. Great performance by the Dash to continue their form from the Challenge Cup. North Carolina got in there with that 1 penalty, but we need to see a lot more offense from the Courage in the second half.
And so they're off to opposite sides of the field as North Carolina Courage at home for the first time in 2020 and scuffling out of the gates. It is Houston 2, North Carolina 1. We return to Cary with more of the NWSL Fall Series on Twitch after this. Welcome back to halftime of this NWSL Fall Series matchup. Houston 2, North Carolina Courage 1. Don't adjust your screen. That is correct. With Jen Cooper and Mike Watts, this is game 2 of what was planned to be 3 this weekend. We'll get to more on that in our next segment. Portland and OL Reign will be played on Tuesday night. That moved this game to today. This was the early game. Chicago taking on Washington, their first game since the Challenge Cup final loss to the Dash. How about Lubert getting her first NWSL goal?
Love it, and off an assist from Kaylia Watt, her first in a Chicago jersey with the initial feed from Savannah McCaskill to put Chicago up 1-0.
That came in the 26th, and then here's where the tides turn. Savannah McCaskill, second yellow, out in the 42nd.
Not the call she was expecting. Ref didn't hesitate to show her the red. Chicago has to play down the rest of the match. Washington equalizing in the second half. Bailey Feist sending in the ball just past Alyssa Nair to make it 1-1. Like the settle and then the shot. Washington had all the momentum after that except for this one attempt. First by Watt, then Danny Rhodes, signed to a short-term contract for this tournament. Great reaction save with the foot from Aubrey Bledsoe to keep Chicago out of the net.
This in the 87th minute could have been a game winner for Chicago. Instead, your game winner would come in the 3rd minute of stoppage time. It's Jessie Scarpa.
With Crystal Thomas sending over a ball very similar to the first Chicago goal. Jessie Scarpa, just a week after her professional debut, getting her first professional goal.
So Scarpa, the game winner. Washington fantasizes about 600 passes and 60% possession against this Red Stars side. 566 passes and 59%. Not bad at all. It is Houston 2, North Carolina 1. We'll take a look at news and notes from around the National Women's Soccer League and first half highlights and second half kick, all to come here on Twitch. Welcome back to the NWSL Fall Series on Twitch. Houston -2, North Carolina Courage 1. Mike Watts, Jen Cooper. Let's take a look at some news and notes from around the National Women's Soccer League as we get into week 2 of what will run until the middle of October. Wild opener came in week 1. We saw Midge Purse score in stoppage. This time around, we saw Washington get a 2-1 win of their own in stoppage. So that group is wide open.
All about the late drama that group is. And of course, the match that would have been today, right now, Portland OL Reign, postponed to next Tuesday because of air quality concerns in Oregon due to the wildfires. We're all thinking about everybody in that area. And more exciting, slightly positive news, NWSL and Parkside Collectibles announcing a new trading card set. I love these.
Okay, what's the one under-the-radar player in the league you want to have as a card?
I'm going to say, I can't say Bianca St. George because I've already talked about that she's already broken out. Jamia Fields.
Oh, okay, I like that. Cards are coming soon. Good chance for fans to collect their very favorites.
And they're going to do exclusive runs, right? So it won't be unlimited supply. It'll be a...
Yeah, I think so. Here's our next match here on Twitch. It is a Twitch exclusive, both in the U.S. and beyond. Portland and OL Reign. We're going to see these two battle again.
Always a great matchup when these two meet. Scoreless in the Challenge Cup, but still it was kind of back-to-back, goal-to-goal. And now these teams have had more games under their belt. They won't be far from home. Very much looking forward to seeing that match Tuesday night. And some players missing, but not many.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that the Portland Thorns have asked fans to give to the American Red Cross as they continue to help those affected by the wildfires on the West Coast of the United States. That's on Tuesday. North Carolina and Orlando on CBS back here in a week.
That one is really going to be great because we did not get to see Orlando in the Challenge Cup. All of those players itching to play. They brought in a lot of new players that we haven't had a chance to see.
Yeah.
So, and then for them to play North Carolina, great rivalry.
Yeah, don't call it a comeback. They will be back in 2020. Don't call this a comeback just yet. Houston up 2-1 over North Carolina. We've got first half highlights, second half kick after this on Twitch. Let's take a look at first half highlights between North Carolina and Houston. Winner of the Challenge Cup, winner of the NWSL Championship. Early on, Debinha draws the penalty, this inside 20 minutes.
Debinha getting the call to set up a penalty, yellow for Chapman Dahlkemper, her first goal since 2016. All of her goals have come from the penalty spot. Getting by Jane Campbell, who has the most PK saves in league history, but not today. But Dash come back to equalize. Groom sending it over to Latsko. Veronica Latsko getting her first goal since 2018. Dash equalizing, but they weren't even done for that first half.
They score in the 25th. They score again in the 37th. Look at all this work by Mewis.
Shea Groom thinking she might need to get a call for the PK there. Nope. Mewis with her left foot, one touch, slams it into goal. Her first goal since the Challenge Cup put Houston up over North Carolina 2-1.
And with that ready to go for the second half, no fans in attendance in North Carolina. Back in home venues, first time in Cary since the NWSL Championship game in 2019. And North Carolina, like they're shot out of a cannon, quickly sending this across. Danica Evans came out at halftime.
So Haley Harbison is making her NWSL debut out of Pepperdine, like teammate Lynn Williams. Harbison drafted last year, but tore her ACL right before the regular season started and wasn't quite fully fit during Challenge Cup. Now she's back and getting that debut.
Over Williams, Kurtz steers that aside. So for North Carolina, it means they have 2 more windows in which to utilize 3 subs. Houston has all 3 of their windows and all 5 of their subs. You see Harbison for Evans. For Evans, I don't know that she ever had a chance to truly be successful today.
It's such a different midfield setup than we've seen from Paul Riley, moving from the box formation to 3-1-4-2. Yeah, I had to think about that. The Sheffield United formation. And of course, losing Addison Merrick to an injury in the first half is putting in a player that he was expecting to just be able to use as a sub. But he's committed to testing this 3-back, this formation. But we barely called Lynn Williams' name, barely called Danica Evans' name.
How different it could be with Merritt Mathias and Kristen Hamilton and Jaylene Daniels, and your midfield could be O'Sullivan and Mewis and Mace.
Or even Mackenzie Meehan, who is available for this tournament but is injured for this game.
Foot injury. So a very different North Carolina than we've seen in the past, although there's a lot of players here whose development they say is crucial. Away from Groom on that ball out into the channel.
I appreciate Paul Riley's attitude so much, as you know, our ultimate role is player development. And the attitude, the leadership on this team, the way he kind of sets a theme each year, you know, like, and he and Mewis had picked out the, you know, burn the boats mentality for this year. And their eternal hashtag of no finish line. I can't see any of these players giving up, right? It ain't over till it's over, and we have seen North Carolina, like you said, rooting for the jersey. We've seen them come back late in many games.
Williams has that deflect away. Dabinia collides with Malay inside the 18. They were both making darting runs. Corner coming up.
Lynn Williams, the 2016 Golden Boot winner, also MVP that year, and then got her first U.S. national team call-up just a month later.
Ball across, swings beyond the post.
Not much for Jane Campbell to do with that one.
Dabinia going to work.
Dabinia choosing to stay stateside, and like Camilla from Orlando, went back to Brazil to play the rest of the fall there.
Appears Marta is still in, right?
That's the last we heard, yes.
Yeah.
Orlando and Utah at this point, the only teams we haven't seen final fall series rosters for.
The news confirmed this morning by Tottenham that Spurs have signed Alex Morgan, who's coming off maternity, which is certainly a chance for her to get more games, competitive games in the lead up to the Olympics, where she certainly would like to be considered. Go grab her spot again.
And I think that's the challenge for all of the national teamers, based on where they are in their career, what they're looking ahead to for getting on that Olympic roster, which is only 18 players, not 23 like the World Cup. And Vlatko Nanoski being open with them and saying, however you can get minutes, get minutes.
Malay. Wow, that hung up on the line, gets blasted into the empty bleachers. North Carolina at this stage Only 191 passes and only 72% accuracy. Just has not been there yet.
North Carolina known for its very high number of shots on targets, corners, but not always for the efficiency.
1 shot on target in the first half, 5 shots. This is a team that'll put up 25 shots in a game and no one will blink. She's usually good for about 5 to 10. 12 goals, 6 assists last year for Lynn Williams. Dabinia, 10 goals, 7 assists. Dabinia breaks through, takes the shot, and rips it in! Oh, it's magical from Dabinia! And we're level at 2. Don't ever count out the courage.
Much like we saw in the playoffs last fall, Dabinia pulling the team on her shoulders and said, I'll put the ball in the back of the net. Rocket from distance, off the throw in. Williams serving it over to Dabinia, gets past her mark, lets loose into that upper corner, and Jane Campbell can't get there. 2-2.
The kind of player who makes tactics and formation so often completely for naught. Here's the run by Houston trying to regain an advantage here. North Carolina scored the first goal and the 4th of this game. A penalty from Dahlkemper, a tremendous long-range missile from Dabinia. Watch out here for Chapman. Was already in the book. And it is another yellow. She's out. Second yellow for Alicia Chapman and sent off in the 53rd. 2 red cards in one day in the NWSL. I'm not sure this has ever happened.
Well, you know I'm going to look that up.
Yeah.
But it's also the second red card in Alicia Chapman's NWSL career. Her first while playing for the Dash. Dash red cards usually come from Rachel Daly, so Chappie's just stepping up, take over Rachel's role.
And this is going to be brutal for the Dash because they're going to lose Chapman for their upcoming game as well. And they're going to have to make some decisions as to how to adjust going forward. Another look at this challenge with Millay coming in. Went studs into the top of her boot.
We saw Chapman get a warning in the first half when she was already sitting on 1. So Dash will play down the rest of the match. Still haven't used any subs. But this is an advantage you know that North Carolina is going to take advantage of.
One would imagine. Williams goes sliding out. Mewis involved in the challenge. Chicago held their own after McCaskill was sent off in the 42nd of their match earlier today. But in the end, conceded a couple down the stretch. Washington continued to pound away. Dabinia takes the space, sought out Williams. Got off to a torrid start at the Challenge Cup and cooled off considerably. Into the wide area. Harbison serves beyond Dabinia and Williams.
Actually, Mike, not the first time there's been 2 red cards in one day in NWSL, but we would have to go all the way back to May 2014 to. And this is the first time for Chapman to get red off of 2 yellows. Her other one was a straight red.
Which teams were involved in 2014?
Well, Houston Dash earned their first ever red card in just their 4th ever game. Straight red for Osio Hale. And in that same day, Lisa Devanna, surprise, surprise, got one while playing for Boston.
Oh.
And, how could I forget this? There was actually a game last summer with 2 red cards in the same game. Julie King and Marta for Orlando.
Right. Ball lays through. And there's the late offside flag. North Carolina starting to play with the passion, the rhythm that we're used to offensively now that Houston's down to 10.
And just like we saw in the earlier match, you know, the team that's down gets that equalizer, you start seeing that energy pick up. And we see 2 subs coming over to the touch line to check in. Looks like Katie Stengel and one other.
Heavy touch. Andrzejewski trying to sneak through. Mewis. Schmidt. Back by Latsko. One high up the field here. Out wide, Malay. Malay crossing, stab down by Williams, and eventually this will get out. It'll be a goal kick. Couple changes coming for the Dash. Another look at Malay's ball across, and not a bad look at all for Lynn Williams.
She doesn't need a lot of space to get a goal. That narrowly missed, rolling into the net.
Couple of subs coming here. Simon has come on. Andrzejewski comes off, making her NWSL debut. Had a couple chances in that first half. And the return of Katie Stengel, who did not play after a social media snafu.
Right before
perhaps.
the quarterfinal in the Challenge Cup. Interesting to note, Simon coming on, replacing a striker, so that's maybe shifting back to cover that spot left by Chapman. Stengel did get 1 assist in that opening game, Challenge Cup, 3-3 draw against Utah, her former club.
One of the most fun games we had in the Challenge Cup came right off the bat. That opening match day. Naughton circles back. Naughton so integral to how Chicago has made the playoffs year after year, to the point where Rory Dames told us in the lead up to the Challenge Cup final, said if we lose, the only solace is that Katie Naughton could win.
That's class.
One of those situations where you just have too many good center backs. Expansion draft is coming. You have to decide where you can get assets, and they made a bunch of deals to try and accumulate all the allocation money they can, knowing that Louisville or Angel City can never come and take their cash, nor their draft picks.
And it was a good trade for both players. Kalia Watt getting a new situation, different opportunities to work her way back into the national team, Naughton getting back into a starting role.
Dahlkemper drives that away.
Dahlkemper serving as captain for the Courage today for the first time in her career.
There's a lot of pride from Paul Riley when he mentioned that on the phone, that was going to be the case.
So many of these players have been coached by Paul since they came into NWSL in 2015. Well, he took over Flash 2016. A lot of these players joined Flash in 2015. He took over, then the club moved to North Carolina, so it's like that continuing core. Abby Dahlkemper, Lynn Williams, Jaylene Daniels, even though she opted out of this tournament. Abby Urseg's been with them for a long time now. Kristen Hamilton, Meredith Speck also dating back to the Flash era.
Offside flag is up against North Carolina. Lynn Williams trying to sneak in behind. Great CONCACAF Olympic qualifying right here. 4 games, 3 goals, 4 assists. You mentioned 2015 in Western New York, drafted 6th overall. Dahlkemper 3rd overall in 2015.
4 first-round picks for Western New York Flash that year, insane.
Well, you think about that year for Western New York. You think about Chicago had that draft in, was it 14, where they had all those picks stacked together?
And Washington last year getting Staub.
Sanchez.
Yeah, well, Sanchez this year, but
Right.
yeah, DiBiase, et cetera, McGrady.
If you do one draft right, you can set your core for half a decade.
Exactly.
Then hope you're at the top of the allocation order. Well, that was Washington's old plan. Things have changed. Out wide here, Williams playing this in front, does not get the vital touch. Right at the top of the 6-yard box.
And this far into the history of the league, Mike, we're in territory we've never had in women's pro soccer in this country, that you've had clubs have real history and coaches developing styles and rivalries developing and scouting systems so much more thorough than they've ever been before. Rosters getting larger.
8 years. It's gone by in a blink.
I don't want to know how young you were when this league started.
I was in college when I covered Sky Blue, my first pro job, the 2nd or 3rd year of the league. Dabinia again. Had something special in her mind. Blocked. Millay. There's Campbell. Campbell, the unquestioned #1 in Houston, time after time after time.
Holds the league record for consecutive starts and goal in the regular season. She's up to 64. And that doesn't count Challenge Cup or this game. But no one else has played goal in an official match for Houston since June 2017.
I looked at you, you looked at me, we exchanged a quick. Williams, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got Lindsey Harris, who played for the Tar Heels, sitting on the bench for Campbell today, if necessary.
Look at this move, chasing inside. Prince shut down. Dabinia. Nearly unparalleled skill set in the NWSL.
And Paul Riley's talked about how far she's come with her defensive skills. You know, she was a great offensive threat from the start. She scored the first Courage home goal in club history.
Said the first few months that she was around, brilliant with the ball, utterly useless without it. There was a bit of a heart-to-heart had with Dabinia about that. Take ownership of your game. She's done that and exceeded expectations, working her way into the MVP conversation last year, no doubt, being the MVP in the postseason when it all counted most.
And I'd love to visit that alternate universe somewhere where she wasn't injured in the 2017 semifinal in the 10th minute to see if she had played in that 2017 NWSL final, what would have been different.
Williams. Sophie Schmidt, the Canadian international. Chapman sent off in the 52nd minute. Second yellow after picking one up in the 18th that led to the penalty. Dashed down a player and trying to regain this advantage. Poked over by LeBay.
Sophie Schmidt sitting on 199 international caps.
The worst time possible. Stangl.
Stangl, another player with area connections, having played at Wake Forest.
It's an easy pickup off that agreement. I want to go back to Schmidt for a moment because some players do get stuck on some significant milestones. We're on 49 goals for Christine Sinclair, right? You think about the...
I'm just glad that Allie Krieger is past 100 now.
No question.
And that Morgan and Lloyd have their 100th goals.
Prince, you've got some of those. You've got... It took a little while for Wambach to hit that number. It didn't take long once they got to Olympic qualifying for Canada for Christine Sinclair to set that record. Just play St. Kitts.
And she's not done.
Nope. But to have it taken out of your hands this way, where you're sitting on 199, and that's such rarefied air in Canada.
Well, that's rarefied air worldwide.
True enough.
There are 21 people ever who have played 200 caps.
Thankfully, you're not going to ask me to...
I'm not going to ask you to name them. Everyone can Google.
67th minute here. Level at 2. North Carolina does have a long throw. They uncork it here. They'll do it again. This time they'll circulate it back.
Haven't really seen anybody do the flip throw lately.
No, it's been a minute. All floated, handled there by Campbell. The NCAA website, the American Collegiate System, of course, runs through the NCAA. Just had an entire article from different players that flip throw, the art of the flip throw. It's over on their women's soccer page right now. Caro started this, comes out to Williams, looking to float this back. Dabini will give it chase. That's a fool's errand. It's out of play.
Of course, North Carolina missing Jess McDonald, who has an amazing throw, and even without a flip, she doesn't need the flip throw. She's provided some great assists and just feeds from distance off throw-ins.
There's an art to it. Can be such a unique weapon. Rolled ahead here, Stangl. Racing Dahlkemper back, LeBay. Good turn. There's more to be had here. Eventually Simon able to bring that down. There's a player down back behind the play. Schmidt. At one point played in 76 consecutive games for the Canadian women's national team.
First capped at 17. I mean, consistency. And it's her generation. She, Christine Sinclair, Diana Matheson, like when they go, Canada's losing such an amazing core of players. Of course, bringing up a lot of great young ones.
Prince is only 25 years old, and you can go down the list of different Canadian players that are just beginning to get close to their prime.
Many of them having already played in the 26 Olympics, where Canada got bronze, you know, played last summer in their very frustrating performance in France. I would just like to see Canada get more games outside of those major tournaments once we have games again.
Games again. I wouldn't mind seeing Canada in a Tournament of Nations or a She Believes Cup. I wouldn't mind that at all. Groom moves that back.
Always a feisty match when it's USA-Canada. You ask any Canada player, they can name the exact date that Canada last beat USA. It's like burned into their brains.
Good ball floated forward. Maybe there's some room here for a strike! Wow! Houston regains the lead with another stroke of genius. Sophie Schmidt.
She said you're gonna foul me? I'll show you what I got. Mewis lofting it over. Stengel feeding it to Schmidt. Schmidt bullet to that back net. That is her first goal from the run of play for the Houston Dash. She had one goal in Challenge Cup from the penalty spot, game winner in the final, but this is her first one in NWSL in the run of play since 2014, when you first were calling games for Sky Blues. You called. Last time she scored a goal, you probably called it.
If it was at home. Wow. What a response by Sophie Schmidt. 71st minute. Only 19 international goals. So few in the NWSL. Did score in the final, a penalty, of course, in the Challenge Cup against Chicago.
I got to give props to Katie Stengel laying that ball off to Schmidt. That's kind of the role that she fell into in Utah towards the end of last season, that hold-up player. She did the same thing in the opening game against Utah in Challenge Cup.
So Dabinia with a remarkable goal. Schmidt responds. It's 3-2 Houston as they look for their first ever win against North Carolina in any competition in their 9th meeting. And a free kick for North Carolina that'll essentially look a bit like a corner. Yes, they're playing for the Verizon Community Shield, but let's be honest, it would be easy to ask what's on the line here. These games have been tremendously entertaining thus far. The goals have been good, at least.
Players definitely taking it seriously. And I keep saying about it's the younger players that they are stars. We just don't know them yet. And they're all fighting for, hey, where am I going to play in 2021?
Dabinia. Pretty sure she's going to be here. We'll get a corner out of this.
No question on that one.
At this point, just flexing her muscles. 73rd minute and another corner. As North Carolina has grown into this game with Houston reduced to 10. They're on level terms for only a few moments before Houston regains the advantage. Mewis. Williams. Speck. Lynn Williams. Williams back. Dabinia. Malay. Malay lifting for Dabinia. Header back. Good defensive effort. Campbell comes off her line and collects that.
And Mike, North Carolina has not allowed 3 goals at home since 2017. And it's only happened twice in their history, both times, of course, coming in their inaugural season.
And a reminder that in NWSL competition, this is only their 40th home game, but their record, unbelievable. This is the 21st time they've scored 2 or more goals in an NWSL home game, which of course is to leave out the ICC. North Carolina has 1.
Sorry, sir, you can't stand there. Thank you.
And we've reached a hydration break. For these teams, probably just in the nick of time. We've got a wild one on our hands. Paul Riley said it could be 9-8. He said he didn't have the foggiest idea. Right now, it's 3-2 Houston over North Carolina. Our coverage of the NWSL Fall Series continues after this on Twitch. Welcome back to Carey. Jen Cooper, Mike Watts, so glad you're spending your afternoon with us. Or your evening, your morning, wherever you may be. Houston 3, North Carolina 2. First game in Carey since the 2019 championship. Houston coming off that incredible run to the Challenge Cup final and their first ever NWSL trophy. Out to win Community Shield. North Carolina led early, then trailed, leveled, and Houston with a remarkable goal by Sophie Schmidt to retake the lead in the 71st. We come out of the hydration break. Houston down to 10. Interesting that Houston has been able to put this on their terms out of the hydration break for a moment.
And playing a man down.
Schmidt. That's a poor error coming into this game. Very clear from North Carolina. Can't let Schmidt conduct the offense for Houston. He's done a bit of that. Of course, can't really prepare for a goal like what she just scored. Turned over en route to Stangl. Speck, who's moved more internally as this game has progressed. Head by Recaro. Look at the speed and burst from Debinha. Williams, Malay, overrun. It's Groom checking back. Speck. How about this? Lined high. Well high by Meredith Speck, and sub to come here in the 79th minute. What a story. Riley Baisden. There was a point with all the opt-outs that came so late on as Malay checks out that Paul Riley came to practice and simply said, guys, we need players. Had film on Baisden within 10 minutes through Lynn Williams. Also, in Paul Riley's words, Pepperdine alum. He said Pepperdonian. I wasn't
like
sure
that.
if
That's fancier.
Yeah. Anywho, Baisden available, was able to get on the next flight the following morning past protocol and makes her NWSL debut here. I'm not sure there would be anything more North Carolina courage than if she were to score an equalizing goal. It's in their DNA, no matter how long you've been here. Dahlkemper trying to get forward as an overlapping center back, a key tenet of this new 3-1-4-2. Tossed in by Dahlkemper. Comes back to Baisden. Back to Campbell. Run forward here by Nichelle Prince. Prince got her legs caught out. And Carrie Recaro commits the foul. Houston's going to have a chance at a free kick in a dynamite position.
Recaro, 2 seasons in Houston. She's played with Prince. Gets her from behind. Thankfully, the foul outside the box, so it's not a penalty kick, but dangerous free kick location for the Dash. Or rather, dangerous for North Carolina. And like we saw in Challenge Cup, Dash often had 2 people on the ball. Wouldn't necessarily know who was going to take it. Well, we have Groom or Schmidt. What do you think?
I think Schmidt might be feeling it. They'll line this up and line it right into the wall. How about Schmidt? Second time, nearly the charm. That's ultimately a few feet wide. Subs coming here late. Nairn will come on. And good to see Fields making her return.
Substitution.
As Mark Krikorian used to put it when she was at Florida State, Ms. November and December. Always good for a late goal when it really counted. NCAA tournament kind of time. Groom comes out.
Fields with that game winner in the 2014 final, giving Florida State their first ever national title. Her first season in NWSL was 2015, playing for the Flash.
You think back for Houston a year ago, 7th place, 12 points out of the playoffs. Really sunk out of contention. Baisden making the run. Baisden crossing. Oh, what a finish by Lynn Williams! North Carolina pulls even again, and it's those Pepperdonians getting together.
That's the magic word, clearly, is Pepperdonians.
Wow.
Look at this. Baisden making the run, sending the ball back to Williams. Makes no mistake. Nice ball in with the right, dropping back. Right-footed, one touch to the upper corner. Jane Campbell can't reach it. North Carolina equalizing. You never count out the courage.
What a debut for Baisden, who's only here because Lynn Williams said in the team huddle last week, I know someone who can play. And Lynn Williams scores in the 83rd. Had a dozen goals a year ago. This is her 4th of 2020 between the Challenge Cup and now the Fall Series. Buckle up, here we go. Still another 6+ minutes before what should be extensive stoppage time. The step around by Williams. Return, Lynn Williams. Lynn Williams with a blast, and that's handled it. Sort of bobbled around, pinballed for...
It looked like a knuckleball.
For Campbell. Another look at the goal.
Williams, one touch across her body. Too fast for Campbell to get there in time to save it. And we could still have another 10 minutes of game. There could still be more goals, Mike. But you called it. It's the Pepperdonian magic.
Yep. Beyond just being truly a gorgeous place to go to school, also a really solid soccer program year after year. Baisden played there from 2012 to 2016. Williams just 1 year older.
Well, now we just need Bri Vazali come off the Houston bench.
Yeah.
To add her Pepperdonian flair.
Yeah, another Pepperdine All-American. This is a banner day, the California school. Houston down to 10, and North Carolina is fishing for a 4th. And here they come with a corner. They don't quite have all the pieces that have made them set piece super team in years past. That doesn't mean they aren't dangerous in this moment. Service lofted. And away, Speck capped. Here's a ball that gets in! North Carolina leads! Oh, you couldn't make this up. It's DePina again!
From the corner, rising header. Ball bounces out. DePina gets it back in across the goal. past Jane Campbell. 2 goals for Dabinia. Potential game winner. Last time, Mike Watts, that North Carolina was here, they scored 4 goals.
They've done it again. They scored 8 goals in the postseason and 55 in the regular season in 2019. Here's a ball forward for Stangl. Couldn't hold it up. There's a whistle, and ultimately Stangl was offside when that ball was played. Goodness me, North Carolina's totally turned this thing on its head. And to be fair, the Dash have been playing with 10 since Alicia Chapman was sent off for a second yellow. It's a shame there aren't any fans in the stands today, as COVID-19 continues to be an issue throughout the United States. But surely hundreds of thousands of fans are enjoying this on broadcast television. We're glad you're enjoying it as well on Twitch this afternoon.
And after this, Houston Dash return home. They don't play next weekend, but will play the following weekend, and they will be able to have fans in their stadium at Houston, though it will be held to under 15% capacity. So maximum 3,000 fans, only sit in the upper deck, have to have masks, contactless tickets, everything contactless, staggered entry, all the appropriate protocols.
Only a few minutes to go here. The first 2 games have come down to stoppage time in this fall series. Corner again. You can see it in some of these Dash players' faces. So often we talk about, are you fit or are you North Carolina fit? There is a difference. Something acknowledged league-wide.
You can see the swagger returning to some of the North Carolina players.
Throw North Carolina. They'll try and see this out late. Tuesday night, make sure you don't miss it. It'll be OL Reign and Portland Thorns. Game that was scheduled to be played today, but due to the ongoing wildfires on the American West Coast, really terrifying pictures and scenes. The team raising money through the Red Cross. That game will be played Tuesday. Will complete the second weekend, so to speak, the NWSL Fall Series. This runs out, goal kick Houston. Time to find a 90th minute or later equalizer for the Dash to avoid an 8th loss in 9 meetings all time against North Carolina. Schmidt. Room out here to explore. Fields. Fields spins, plays it in front, turning, Mewis. Mewis surrounded, and it's Nairn.
Attention at the stadium. The 4th official has indicated a minimum
Nairn had
4 minutes of added time.
late stoppage equalizer last summer, playing it in Tacoma against the Reign. Didn't quite get that on target that time. Still 4 minutes of stoppage to go.
LeBay's stat line is not going to look the way she had hoped, one would imagine. 9 shutouts and 18 starts last year for the Canadian. And yet, the victory would probably be pretty satisfactory, all told. She'll start the 2 home games is the expectation. Roland and formerly Leshnak, now Murphy, be called upon to take on the other 2 games after she opts out to return to Canada. Campbell drives it away.
You know, and James Clarkson mentioned to us that he was concerned about having to play in the white kits because the only 2 losses the Dash had in the Challenge Cup, they were playing in these kits. So I think he's reinforcing his own, you know, superstition. But it ain't over.
Nope. Fields serving, punched away. Well done by LeBay. And now ripped upfield. Debinha gives chase. Williams running down the middle, and Debinha is going to allow time to elapse halfway through stoppage. And she's won a corner. She's not necessarily the sturdiest, but she's so creative that taking the ball away from her in a moment like this, very difficult, whether it's Williams or Debinha. Pick your poison.
Yeah, Erin Simon didn't have much of a choice other than to have the ball go out on her. She was just trying to contain the ball to that corner, and now North Carolina's looking to finish off the game, just burn down the clock in that corner. Dash just hoping to get it back at one more attempt.
What a fun game this might be when it returns to Houston for the other leg. Each team will play each other and Orlando home and away.
To me, the most interesting of the 3 pods because none of the teams met this summer.
About 40 seconds left. It'll be a throw for the Dash as they try and find a late equalizing goal. Stangl. Comes out to Nairn. So much experience in this league. Call this a Super Cup, a Community Shield kind of game. The reigning Challenge Cup winner against the reigning league champion. The attack on here. This should be a corner. It is. What a weird ricochet that took.
Great
coming
work
off of
by
Perea.
Haley Hansen.
Oh, here we go. One corner here for Houston to try and equalize, or North Carolina can walk out with all 3 points. Everybody forward. Driven ball, back post, skims out. And that's a goal kick, and that should be that. Everything you could ask for. North Carolina courage. Proving the old sheriff is the new sheriff. And Houston Dash. An incredible performance. Fall just short. It's the same old story between these sides. North Carolina knocks off the Dash in spectacular fashion. 4 goals to 3.
Plus a red card, plus an injury, so much drama. What a meeting between last year's league champion, this year's Challenge Cup champion.
LeBay's stats aren't going to be something to keep an eye on anymore, but there's the smile that comes with a victory. She and Schmidt, the Canadians, can laugh off Schmidt's incredible goal. In the end, it is Courage 4, Dash 3. Our post game when we return. You're watching the NWSL Fall Series on Twitch.